and with Kevin Hatchard as well. Now closing in on just 6 hours to go on deadline day. Remember, it's a 7 p.m. deadline in England and across the major European leagues. Scotland is at 11. Still so much business to be done as one of the wildest transfer windows ever draws to a spectacular close. Will that British transfer record of Alexander Isak to Liverpool get over the line? We'll find out here on Sky Sports News in the next 6 hours. All right. Clock's ticking. Let's get straight to it. Liverpool and Newcastle have now less than 6 hours to get their deals done. Our reporter Vinny O'Connor is at Liverpool's training ground for us. He joins us live right now. Well, Vinny, how far are we away from Liverpool's move for Alexander Isak being wrapped up?
Well, it never rains, but it pours on deadline day. And certainly that's the case with the business that Liverpool are looking to do before that transfer deadline. And Alexander Isak is obviously the big name through the door, or effectively will be through the door come that 7 p.m. deadline. He's currently in the building at the moment undergoing his medical. He is due to leave the training ground shortly as well and continue that medical off-site at a local hospital. But obviously he has agreed a 6-year contract with Liverpool. And it will be a British record transfer fee of £125 million. That deal struck, of course, with Newcastle United. And it also has implications for Harvey Elliott, because we know the Liverpool stance was if they weren't going to get an attacking option in, then Harvey Elliott would very much remain with them. But it now seems that he's going to get a move away from the club. And that's because Aston Villa are in advanced talks with Liverpool now over a £35 million deal. It would initially be a loan with an obligation to buy, but obviously Harvey Elliott would relish that opportunity for regular first team football that he might not necessarily be getting here. Such a big impact, a key player, a player of the tournament, of course, for England at the Euros in their success at the under-21 championships. And of course, there were he was a key player, a key figure at times during Liverpool's title success as well. His contribution certainly had an impact during that title-winning success last season as well. But of course, the big name through the door, that will be through the door come that 7 p.m. deadline, is Alexander Isak in that British record transfer of £125 million. OK, so Liverpool getting one man, that's Alexander Isak, but will they get another in Marc Guehi? Let's return to Vinny O'Connor, who's outside Liverpool's training ground for us. Vinny, where are we at with Marc Guehi? Yeah, I just wonder whether the chances of Marc Guehi becoming a Liverpool player today have increased, because Liverpool are preparing for a medical to take place for Marc Guehi down in London, knowing that any potential deal and any potential agreement with Crystal Palace could go really close to that 7 o'clock deadline. Any agreement, though, between the two clubs will still hinge on Palace being able to bolster their defensive ranks again as well. To that end, obviously, we know that Brighton defender Igor Julio is currently undergoing a medical before sealing a move to Selhurst Park as well. Sky Sports News has been told that Liverpool want to make sure that they have every provision has been made for Marc Guehi to get that medical done. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily make sense for him to travel up to the training ground when he can undergo that medical in London, and Liverpool have club offices down in London as well. So Liverpool making provision for Marc Guehi to undergo a medical down in London. Still no formal agreement reached with Crystal Palace as yet, and of course Crystal Palace will not sign off on any deal until they definitely have replacements in at Selhurst Park.
OK, so Marc Guehi's future still unclear, Paul. It might be a silly question, but how much does Crystal Palace need to keep hold of him, do you think?
Yeah, I think he's a brilliant player. I really do think he's a good centre-half. I think he's a cup of tea. I can't just think... it blows my mind that it's just Liverpool. I can't, he gets in everybody's team, in my opinion. People might say at Arsenal he won't get in at the moment because of the two, but he's a great replacement. I know he might want to play, but in this day and age, when we throw about the money, we're talking about 60s, 80s, 100, 125 million. He is a cup of tea, an absolute for a top draw centre half. And you know what? Everything, I don't know the lad, but from the outside, everything that's gone on over transfer deadline day, look at the way he's acted. He's done his job, he's turned up. All right, he might have had that thing with a manager on the pitch at Chelsea, but he turned up, scored an unbelievable goal yesterday, a proper professional. And if he don't get his move this year, he's going to go on a free next year.
You said Slot would already be scratching his head, though. If he then made the move to Liverpool also, does it give Slot even more problems to make? Good problems, though, I suppose.
They are good problems at the start, but they're not in the end. You know, you've got to keep everybody happy. I know people saying Salah goes away for 6 weeks, so Ekitike and, you know, Gakpo will be all right because, you know, someone will come in for them. But that's only for 4, 5, 6 weeks of January. You've got all of the rest of the season, the start of the season. Everybody wants to. That's why Pep Guardiola don't want to work with a big squad, because it becomes hassle in the end. So for me, but yeah, he's a good player. Whoever gets him has had a result, especially at the money they're talking.
OK, we'll come back to you, Paul. Thank you.
We've got these flying around the office today. They are SSN Deadline Day bingo sheets. There's one here that says biggest signing of the window, and it has got that little bit closer with Alexander Isak leaving Liverpool's training ground to conduct the next part of his medical off-site. More on that as we get it. Talking about big signings that were sort of landmark, we're joined by someone who used to hold the British transfer record when he moved from Norwich to Blackburn for £5 million. That is Chris Sutton. Hi there, Chris. Welcome along to you this deadline day. Alexander Isak for £125 million. Looks like it's going to get done. What's your take?
I think it's a really brilliant piece of business for Liverpool. I think most people think that. And will it guarantee them the Premier League? It gives them a far greater chance. Strength in depth is the key to challenge on all fronts. And, you know, it seems like he's forced this move. But in the end, he's got his way. It's a brilliant move for Liverpool.
And, of course, Newcastle getting reinforcements, not exactly a replacement, because they've replaced 2 forwards, Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak, with 2 other forwards in Nick Woltemade and now Yoane Wissa. And we understand it's around the sort of £50-55 million mark. So what is your view on that move?
Well, Eddie Howe said that he wanted 2 strikers in to replace Isak. I really like the signing of Wissa, another one who's forced the move, and I wondered how in years to come Brentford fans will feel about his time at the club. But you look at his numbers the last couple of seasons, I think he's an intelligent player, and I think he'll fit in really well at Newcastle. They play an attacking brand of football. He will enjoy it.
Just thinking about, you know, the different situations that players have found themselves in, those at the centre of these transfer stories across the window, Chris. And you look at Alexander Isak and Yoane Wissa, who've both gone very public about what they want to happen and have really machinated for those moves. Compare that with Marc Guehi, who right now is still Crystal Palace captain and who was player of the match and scored that belter of a goal at Villa Park. So, yeah, do players still very much have the power, do you feel?
Yeah, look, I mean, the truth is everybody knows Isak and Wissa haven't covered themselves in glory in the way they've gone about their business. You know, if it was a clause in a contract and a club was going to pay up to a certain amount, then it would have been made easy for them. They both come out and said that they were made promises. But you know, essentially they could still act reasonably. As you mentioned, Marc Guehi has and carried on playing for Crystal Palace. Eberechi Eze, another player who carried on playing for his club until the very end. So it's not right what's gone on. And, you know, the players certainly in this situation have had the power.
Comes to Alexander Isak, of course, he moves to Liverpool with this fact of being Britain's most expensive transfer now, £125 million. Now got pictures arriving into us of Alexander Isak leaving Liverpool's training ground to head off-site for the next part of his medical. So this one is inching closer with 5 hours and just under 20 minutes to go until the deadline. OK.
Hang around for another hour, as will Dave Reed as well. We are awaiting confirmation of Alexander Isak's move to Liverpool. Here he is. Leaving the Liverpool training ground. We're also waiting for Yoane Wissa's move to Newcastle. Lots bubbling away, as I said. Bella and Jess will also be joined by Alan Pardew as we continue to count down to that 7 o'clock deadline.
Alexander Isak leaves Liverpool training ground to continue his medical ahead of a British record move to Anfield. Right, let's get straight to the deal of the window. AlexanderIsak completing his Liverpool medical as we speak. We'll get straight to Vinny O'Connor. Vinny, how far are we then from Liverpool's move for AlexanderIsak being all wrapped up?
Yeah, well, Liverpool will hope to have it all completed by that 7 o'clock deadline, and they seem to be making good progress as regards that. AlexanderIsak has been here at the training ground today, but he left around about 1:15. That was to continue his medical at a local hospital as well, of course. Personal terms, all that is wrapped up as well, because we understand that AlexanderIsak has agreed a 6-year contract with Liverpool to complete that £125 million move from Newcastle United. It will, of course, be a British transfer record when you consider it's £10 million more than what Chelsea paid back in 2023 for Moises Caicedo, when they paid £115 million to Brighton and Hove Albion. Of course, AlexanderIsak arriving at Liverpool has a bit of a knock-on effect for Harvey Elliott, because Liverpool's stance was that they weren't going to allow him to leave if they weren't bringing in another attacking option. Well, they are obviously going to do that today with AlexanderIsak, and we also know that there is an offer on the table from Aston Villa, and it appears that move is getting close for Harvey Elliott now. I'm sure Rob Jones will bring you more on that, but the important thing here from a Liverpool perspective is that AlexanderIsak is set to become a Liverpool player before that 7 o'clock deadline.
Right, OK. And Vinny, what about Marc Guehi? Where are we at with that?
Again, it looks like the chances of Marc Guehi becoming a Liverpool player really have increased in the last couple of hours or so, because our understanding is that Liverpool have made provision for Marc Guehi to undergo a medical in London. Liverpool, of course, have their club offices down there as well, but obviously when it comes to the deal with Crystal Palace, nothing is agreed, nothing is finalised as yet. However, if they are to get a deal over the line, it is going to be really, really close to that 7 o'clock deadline. So Liverpool making every provision that they've got everything in place to enable them to get that deal done. Therefore, that is why Marc Guehi won't have to travel up here. He can undergo a medical down in London. As I say, there is still agreement to be reached with Crystal Palace, and Crystal Palace will not be sanctioning the sale of Marc Guehi unless they are getting replacements in. And to that effect, obviously, Igor Julio is undergoing a medical at Selhurst Park. We understand that there was a late worry that perhaps West Ham could hijack that deal, of course. So again, it is if Guehi is to become a Liverpool player, then Crystal Palace are adamant that they are going to make sure that they've got adequate replacements in the building as well to allow Marc Guehi to join Liverpool. But as I say, the chances, it seems, are getting closer to that happening. And of course, it could then mean that Joe Gomez would be allowed to leave Liverpool. But again, whether a deal with AC Milan can be completed by that 7 o'clock deadline, again, remains to be seen. But plenty of activity here at Liverpool, both incoming and potentially outgoing as well.
Vinny, thank you. We'll speak to you in a bit.